Okay, so today we're here with Dave, who has just been through my 16-week program and is here to talk about his celebrations and his experience with the program. Thank you for being here, Dave, and doing this with me. I'm excited to have you and to have this discussion. So first question I have for you, can you talk about what the specific, amazing, and measurable outcomes you got from my program?
The overall one of the big issues that I came to was I had nausea. Nausea so bad that I would have bags all throughout the house. I could actually go from 0 to 10, like reaching for a bag really quickly. So not able to find what was going on. That was one of the factors. One of the also factors was I had heard that you worked with inflammation. So because of all my surgeries, I had really bad inflammation in my legs because of the surgeries on my back, along with some nerves being damaged. I also had some side pains that was working on. So getting rid of the nausea was huge. Being able to put away a lot of the bags was huge. Being able to not eat, one night I would have to eat a decent dinner, again, I don't really eat a lot of heavy spicy food, but even like mellow, like Italian food can make me sick. And then like the next night I would have to eat like crackers or oatmeal. So one of the things was learning how to eat better so that I could actually have substantial meals, continuous nights, instead of like, well, 3 nights I get really good meals and 4 nights I'm really gonna eat like junk because I just don't want to make myself sick. So getting rid of the nausea was monstrous. Getting rid of some of the side pains, flank pains is where they were located, was huge. Those were really some of the biggest factors. Just being able to get a little bit back to normal life because of some of the inflammation getting down. Nausea though, anybody who's had nausea and has had pain, I think will agree. I'd rather be in more pain and less nauseous. Even though, people are like, what? And you're just like, no, nausea with pain, with heavy duty pain is the worst. It really is.
So can you talk a little bit about what your situation was like before you entered my program?
So I'm 56. My issue started when I was 40. I really worked just an IT job, so it wasn't like I was working a heavy duty construction job or was on my feet all the day, working in like a restaurant anymore. I did that as a kid, but by the time I was 40, I'd been well entrenched in just working in IT, so desk jobs. So my back just started to go. I had a lot of surgeries. I really was kind of right at the beginning of when my issue started, right when the opiates started being put out there, but nobody really knew anything about them. So like I had friends in the nursing community that were amazed that my first prescription was for 100 pills, and they're like, that's for 3 months. And I'm like, no, this says every month, and nobody really knew. I'm just like, well, this takes care of the pain. So this was 2013. Again, I was right there when nobody really knew what was going on. Everybody knew this was just a wonder drug. So to back to the first question quickly, getting off the opiates and getting less opiates was also a big, getting off pills, because I can't stress how much I hate pills. So really my situation was just more and more surgeries, 11 surgeries total, just wasn't really getting rid of the pain. It was, I'd get good for like a year or 2 years or a year and a half, and then it was like surgery, basic PT, opiates, try to work through it, go back to work, so it was just becoming a cycle. So really by the time at the end, I was just like getting so frustrated because nothing really was working. And I've been working with my back doctor, did almost all my surgeries except for my knee surgery that was done by another doctor who I 100% trusted. So it wasn't so much, I wasn't trusting what the doctors weren't doing what they said they were doing, which was a lot of arthritis. I also have bone spurs in my back that were growing, and nobody ever really could figure that out why, but they were growing right on my sciatica nerve, which is why my leg damage is so bad. So it was really a frustration of, I believed my doctors, but you really weren't fixing me permanently, even after fusions, which what I really thought was really going to be the big fixer, and it really wasn't. I still had the leg pain, the flank pains nobody could describe, the nausea nobody could describe. Doctors and doctors, again, you know, it's at some point you're like, why am I doing all this if nothing's working? I lost like 80 pounds and still had the pain. Nobody could really explain to me, well, you know, eat right and you'll lose. And I'm just like, well, I'm eating kind of right because I lost all that weight, but I still had the pain. So then I hit a 6-month depression. And that's when I'm like, this isn't working. That's when I really kind of just stopped doing the opiates to a point. I guess I wasn't addicted enough where I was like went into like a major withdrawal. But then Minnesota has medical THC and medical CBD, and I was honestly on the CBD bandwagon, as I like to say, when it was a little red wagon, you know, that you trailed behind you with your kids. So it was just like modern medicine wasn't working, wasn't fixing it. It was stopgapping it. And I needed to find something else that wasn't just such a stopgap.
And you shared with me before about how frustrated you were with the traditional medical model. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, when I did my nausea was, you know, I had like all the tests where they shoved the camera down you and up you and around you. I had, you know, every test you could think of, and I didn't mind doing it because I wanted to find out what it was. My frustration is they couldn't figure it out, and it's the house always won. They always get their money. You know I've used analogies before, but my best one is like when I play blackjack, the house only has a 3% chance over me. But the house has like a 50 or 75, it's 100% because they can do all the tests they want and go, we think this is going to be it. We think this is going to be it. Well, no, it's not. Well, what about this one? You know, you just have a checklist. Like you go to the grocery store and I need my meat. Well, what do I need with my meat? I need my potatoes and my other 16 vegetables that Dr. Diane wants you to eat. So, you know, it's just they go down this checklist and you're like, okay, I understand the checklist and I believe in the checklist, but your checklist isn't working, and I was getting more frustrating and more expensive. You know, how come I don't get a rebate if it didn't freaking work? Well, because you said you would try it, and here's the out clause if it doesn't work, and it just wasn't. There really was no explanation why I was so nauseous, and why I was going literally from 0 to 10, like just reaching for a bag. That's why I had to have them in the car. I had them everywhere. I couldn't go anywhere without a bag. That was just, and nobody could really explain why. Happy that they weren't finding bad things like cancer, and again, not to make light of cancer, but you know, it's like, well, you're not finding this, but you're not finding anything. And then really it came down to something called Zofran. If you're not familiar with it, I know you're familiar, but if somebody's watching not familiar with Zofran, it's like the best antacid you could find, but it's not an antacid. It's when I would wake up in the morning, I almost always was reaching for Zofran, and that was instantly calmed down my stomach. And again, nausea is it's just the worst to deal with. Even if you're not really throwing up, just to have it is bad. And it wasn't for me a lot of stress. I'm not really an overly stressful person. Did the stress test, have been studied really good with stress. So it's not like I was no ulcers. They really couldn't figure it out.
And how did this impact just your daily life?
Well, you know, like there would literally be times I do the cooking in the family for just me and my wife. But I'm a pretty decent house cook. So I would cook like a really nice dinner, and there would be times when I would be serving her dinner and going, I'm going to throw up if I can't take the smell of what I just cooked you. And I would just have to leave her eating, you know, in the kitchen by herself, you know, no, okay, now she's got to watch TV or, you know, and I tried, you know, and I like my wife, so I like to be with her when I can. So it just impacted my life in general. You know, the pains and the aches, I couldn't sit, I couldn't go out as much. If I went out one night, I knew I couldn't go out the next night. One of the things I really loved about my wife is the spontaneity. I could just wake her up on a Saturday or Sunday and go, we're getting in the car, we're going. That was lost. That was really a huge thing. That everything had to be pre-planned. You had to get like the big calendar, like a desk calendar, like you see at work, you know. Excuse me, and it'd be like, well, all right, I have something planned Tuesday, so I can't plan anything for Wednesday, or I'm going to go play poker on Friday night, so that means I really have to lay in bed all day because I can't afford to sit all day and all night. So, it just, the quality of life, it's something that you hear so much about when you talk to people with chronic pain and chronic anything. And it's just like, if you have to accept sometimes that you're not going to get 100% back to normal, but you at least want to try to get 50, 60%. You want to try to get some normalcy a couple days a week, and you just find out when it's less and less. And that really, I think, what puts a lot of people into a depressive state.
For sure. So, Dave, why was it so important for you to fix this when you did? And what was your secret motivation behind wanting to do this program?
I hadn't really found anything that was working that was suitable for me. I mean, if I didn't get off the pills myself, and at one point I was getting prescribed 120 Percocet and 60 Oxy 30s. And I did that for like a couple months, and I'm just like, no, I don't like this. I don't like this feeling. I didn't like being a zombie. Did I have no pain? Yeah, but I didn't like being a zombie. I didn't like I couldn't go out. I kind of live in a little bit outside of the city, so for me to like go see my friends, the majority of them are like 45 minutes away. Didn't feel comfortable driving on the highway, So my choice was, how pain-free do I want to be? And I've always been one of those people, like, if I can get down to 3s, in my condition, I find that acceptable. Or do I want to be no pain, but you can't really do anything? So again, it was coming down to, I've tried everything the doctors have suggested. You ain't working. It's time for me to take more control. What really did it to a degree is I went out to Seattle to visit a friend. And this was 3 years ago, so way before COVID, no issues there. And he actually lives like a couple hours northeast of Seattle, so it was just nice wilderness area. But by then, everything was legal. And I was finally able to obtain legalized CBD, not something that I knew wasn't concocted in a bathtub, which I personally think a lot of it is if you don't watch your regulations. So I was out there for like a week, and on the third day, I noticed that I hadn't done any opioids or anything. So I'm like, well, I can't really give up everything all at once because I don't know what's working, but I knew at the point that what I was trying was working. So the biggest driving factor is what the doctors were telling me wasn't working. I started to figure out, I need to figure out what's working. And if I need to go a little bit on the rebellious side and figure it out myself, then that's what I'm gonna have to do. My driving factor 100% has always been, I not only love my wife, I like my wife, and I want to spend as much time with her as I can. And it's really that simple. When my doctors, my therapist, or anybody always says, what do you want to do? What is your daily goal? Cook dinner for my wife and walk my dog. And when you can't even walk your dog and you can't even do those simple things, you got to change it. And I guess I'm just the type of person that's like, well, screw this. I really felt when I came back from that Seattle trip, that's really when I'm just like, I need to take control of what I'm doing somehow. Took me a little bit to figure it out, hit and miss, but at least that started it. Like, there's got to be alternatives out there because this just isn't working.
For sure. So Dave, what did you try before you started my program that either didn't work or worked somewhat and didn't give you the results that you wanted?
The big thing that really works for me, and I'm a very big proponent, is, after every surgery, have the month of physical therapy. And it's really just learning, again, your foot pumps, your squeezes, your leg pumps. The list that I could go on that I'm sure everybody who's listening or thinking of your program has probably heard a billion times. And they work to a degree, but they don't really go the extra step. And I can't blame the physical therapists that you're seeing, because that's what they're supposed to do. How can we get you back on your feet? That's really all their job is, in my mind, the basic ones. And they did that. But beyond that, it wasn't working. So in Minnesota, I know a couple other states, we're lucky to have a place called Orthology. and they might be called something else, you know, in every other state, but this is a place that has beyond basic physical therapy. It's sports medicine. It's really giving you exercises that I never, because I had 11 operations, I learned exercises I never was shown in physical therapy, in basic physical therapy. So going there at least started to teach me some basic steps that was helping my body as far as some of the aches and pains and getting rid of some of my flank pain, lowering my back pain, lowering a little bit of my leg pain, but it still wasn't getting rid of my nausea. And I just didn't want to keep taking pills. I can't explain how much I hate pills. So that really started of like, well, this is an alternative. And it's not that I'm not open to alternative stuff. I'm one of those people where I need somebody to open up the door for me and just kind of show me a little bit. You know, I don't know what to search on. If I put in alternative medicines, you're going to get some that are good and some that are crackpot and whack, and I'm not going to really know the difference. And I'm going to be too turned off to be like, I don't know enough to sort through what's real and what's the BS, you know? So it was just, okay, this is a little bit different, and it really helped. And I went to a couple different people. One unfortunately would quit, and then they put me with another person. I really wasn't comfortable with that person. Just, you know, you just don't always click with every therapist you work with. And then I went to a different site, one where my wife was going to for a couple of her aches and pains. Ended up going to a couple different ones just because my time was bouncing around. This was right around when COVID was starting. So, you know, some therapists were there, some therapists weren't leaving. And I was really lucky enough to hook up with a certain one, Haley, there. And she really started to really show me exercises that nobody else had shown me before. At least to not get rid of the pain, but at least to cut it down. So again, it was that here's some alternate ways to look at it, you know. And like I had looked at meditation and that stuff, and I'm not. I know it's one of those. I know it works. It's just not for me. Not in that way, you know. I'm really a scent kind of weirdo, so I can't really handle like oils and stuff. My wife's like really good on what she wears, and a few things that she knows drives me nuts. So it's not, again, that I'm not poo-pooing alternate medicines. It's just I needed to find out what worked for me personally and what didn't.
For sure. So Dave, how did you find me and what made you decide to do my program?
So the Haley that I talked about in Disclosure, which I found out a little later, was actually one of your interns. But I was going to Haley for over a year before like functional medicine even entered. So it wasn't like a year of like she's pitching me every day. But what I really liked about her in particular is we would do small talk, but she wouldn't let me babble on like some people do. She always brought it around to, well, let's try this exercise. What's this pain? What's this working? So some of the thing, because she was knowledgeable and took such a, she really made sure my time was used for the therapy, not like, okay, I'm going to be working on your leg here, and while I'm working on your leg, I can do my thing, and we can just babble back and forth about the weather and what's going on in the world. So I'm really good at sniffing out people I trust and don't trust. I really feel I have a really good history, and it's just time went on, and I was having 2-week sessions with her, or a week session with her. As just time went on, I really started to trust her more and more, what she was saying, and just, again, it was the proof of, well, if you do these exercises, they might actually work. And hey, they do work. And she never was like, you know, take this medicine or take this drug. She might talk once in a while about, you know, she knew I was a cook. So we, you know, I actually gave her some cooking tips, and I actually made some pasta for her when I used to make pasta and pastas and stuff. So we would talk about like cooking techniques, and she gave me a couple ideas. Like, I'm not a huge vegetable person yet, but she gave me like ideas like for my wife. It's not uncommon for me. It wasn't uncommon, I should say, for me to cook 2 separate meals. I'm like, oh, Teresa's having this stir fry and I'm not. So what really brought me to you was she asked me one day if I ever heard of practical medicine? And I said, no. And we just talked about it a little. Your name still had not come up. And then I don't really like so then we set up a meeting. And when I'm meeting somebody like you, and it's something I don't know about, and I know I'm not going to have to commit to something that night, I don't like to look up information beforehand. I like to hear what you're going to say from your point of view of what you're trying to tell me about and what your program is and really what you're selling me. And selling isn't the right term, but that, it encompasses what I mean. Of, what you're trying to get me to buy into, I think that would be more of a better term. And then I can look up and see what are you trying to get me to buy into versus what is people saying you're really buying into, like timeshare. This is a great timeshare place. And then you look up and you're just like, scam, 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 So I really wanted to hear what you had to say. So what really brought me to you overall was finding somebody that was really helpful, who I really started to trust, and what she was saying, didn't try to sell me on you. I'm like, what's your cut? Come on, I don't get a fighter's fee. Come on, if you don't get a fighter's fee, you should get a fighter's fee. You should at least get a card. I get nothing, I swear. So I really, really trusted her that you're not like sending out interns into the world to steer people to you. It was really just trusting her and believing and just prove what she was doing, especially to my flanks and my back was working. Didn't cost me anything to hear it. You were okay with my wife listening in. I'm always suspicious when you hear people like, oh, I'm going to tell you this right now. You don't need your significant partner. You're just like, scam, 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 scam. So that's what really brought me to you, was just finding somebody and the willingness to at least hear what you had to say to me. And then doing a lot of research after the initial meeting and finding out really what it was about. And were you saying what I was reading? Was there a big scope in the difference? And there really wasn't. I mean, if you just looked up what you were telling me, this is what the buy-in is versus there's what practical medicine is. And, it was all about the food. And I'm just like, oh, I cook. I could cook. So, I mean, that was really the overriding factor. It's just, I had nothing to lose to at least hear hear it.
So when you first heard about functional medicine, what appealed to you about that?
I had a hard time when I read what foods I could eat, because even though I say I'm a cook, I am just a whack job eater. And my biggest joke, people was like, oh, I could eat wild meat, and a couple vegetables, and an orange and pecans. Woo! Just reading more and more of the positivity out of it. I was really interested when I read who started it and his reasoning for starting it. And what I read was this doctor is like a basic doctor. Just kind of reminded me of my doctor. I've tried everything on these people that have chronic pains. I've tried Momonicin. I've tried everything that I'm supposed to do. And it's just not working for the repeat people. Why is it not working? What's the common denominator? And then you just start reading. It was kind of like when I first started reading on back fusions. Okay, well, this is the benefit of doing the fusion. And then you just start reading more and more. And I guess, as I mentioned, I was on the computers in 1994. So I'm really good at doing research, really good at it, So just spending the time, and then my wife too, really good at doing research, and we just really delved into it, and it just really started to come out more and more of why not, It just seemed to be something that kind of made sense, kind of a holistic approach, which I'm really all for. In all honesty, if I had to name it a religion, it would, be more of the holistic, that type of thingy. So it just seemed to fit in with something that I was willing to try, not like, we're going to try electroshock therapy, or, you know what I mean? It just didn't seem, it seemed new, because it is. I mean, compared to medicine, it's a very new thing, but it just seemed like it was working. And I guess I didn't really see it was like, here's all the new drugs that we're going to have you try. You know what I mean?
Right. Sure. So I know when you first came to my program, you were a little skeptical about all the things that I was going to have you do. You weren't sure if you wanted to or not. Can you talk about what some of the first things I asked you to do and how you felt about it?
You know, giving up things that are good in life. Some things are easy, you know, like when you just look at the list, a lot of it was the foods. Um, I, so I guess one of the good things is, and you know, boo COVID, we all know that sucks, but if one thing came out of it good for me is that I started this in October when COVID was going on. So it was really easy for me to restrict my diet because there really wasn't a lot of options to go out to eat. You know, it's not like I could stop on the way home and run in and get a burger and then tell my wife, oh, I'm just not hungry. Just gonna have some crackers. You know, and then everybody was just staying home. There wasn't parties going on. I didn't really have to worry about snacking. Changing the food. I know you talked to me about trying to do some probiotics, mixing in some stuff, doing smoothies for the first time. I think a lot of it really was just changing food. You know, I mean, we talked about a lot of the holistic stuff. My biggest compliment to you is you were like, well, if it doesn't work for this person, then you are not going to waste your time trying to push it on somebody. I think you recognized, you know, okay, maybe I need to push this a little bit harder, but I'm not going to waste my time or his time if I already know that he's against it. And he's actually not like, I'm not going to do it. It was just like I gave my reasons why it just isn't for me. And that was that. And, you know, you're like, all right, let's just kind of go move along. It wasn't my way or the highway. You were very much like, well, what's your way? This is my program, and how do we fit your way into my program? Not, we're going to shove my program down your throat, and you're going to have to do it my way.
I think I remember, excuse me, you saying at one point when you found out I was a Marine, you were afraid that's how the program would be.
Yeah, I have two of my oldest friends are both Marines married, and they both will admit that the Marines really, really shape their attitude in their life, and they're really, and it's just coincidental, but they're really my only friends that I have that, you know, were from the military, came from military background. Um, his wife is a friend of mine, and she came from a long standing Marine background. You know, so, and it's sometimes it's with his kids, it's my way or the highway. And yeah, and I'm like, oh, you're not a way, but you're a badass Marine and you're in intelligence and you play poker. So I'm like, you know, all the tricks. So yeah, I'm just like, all right, well, I'm going to see maybe a clash. I hope we don't have a clash of wills because I'm not afraid.
So, and how did your experience in the program and with me differ from your initial thoughts on that?
Oh, like I said, I mean, I kind of went in with it kiddingly, but I mean, I could tell by our earlier review, you know, from the initial meeting that, you know, you were very much like, here's my checklist of things that I offer, that I've cultivated over the years. It's not like I've just sprung up in the last 2 years, like a web app, you know. Again, you have the history behind you. You have the you know, if you really do your research, you can find it out there, reviews on you, and not even just on practical medicine. You know, there's a reason why you have a lot of things on your card, you know. So it's not like you're a one-trick pony, but you could see that you worked really well in what I needed you to work with. So it was just a matter of that. But again, it was just really, you know, I don't want to, I can't like be like, the meditation really is one that it's just never worked for me. I've tried it. It just doesn't work for me. Not in like maybe the traditional sense. I don't know. But like the foods, when you found out I like to cook and then I'm the cook, you know, you're right away. It's like, well, here's one thing we can definitely get him into. And for me, I'll give the noodles as an example, you know. My camera is actually sitting on my pasta maker in the box because it's the best angle. But I couldn't tell you the last, and why I've made pasta for friends, because it's just I don't mind it. I couldn't tell you the last time I've eaten any of it, but I found these noodles that in like a lasagna bake or a goulash bake give me the exact same texture. Never in a million years would I have tried these noodles. Never in a million years would I have done smoothies. You know, you did that DNA and you're like, this, you should really try smoothies. And it's funny because I still cannot eat a blueberry as a blueberry, but a blueberry smoothie with spinach, which I can't taste, which again, I never would have even thought of. And then mix it in with some almond vanilla milk. It's really a good breakfast. And, you know, I sit around with my friends and I'm like, I can't believe we're talking smoothie recipes. You know, where's the Jack Daniels? So, you know, it's finding the life changes that you can adapt to. And again, for me, for the food, it was just a lot of what can I replace it with? And I said earlier in the video, I needed somebody to help me to open up that door. I didn't need you to guide me down the path and skip along next side to me, but I needed somebody like you to be like, here's a different way and here's what you can do. And then you just start, like, it starts working a little bit and your flank pain goes away and your back pain goes away and your nausea goes away. Like, oh okay, no swear words. Maybe she's onto something. You know? And if you do it and you're willing to go at least the 16, I know when I started, I'm like, I will not be your 100, ever be your 100% success story. Like, I will not convert to everything. I just know it. There's just too many things on this list of foods that I like to eat that I'm going to have to figure out what not to do. And that's the other thing I can't stress enough is don't think of it as a 16-week program. At some point, you're going to go in and you're going to be like, if you're ever in Weight Watchers or AA or any 12-step program, a lot of times it's like, I got my 16 weeks and then I'm done. And it's like, no, it really is you really need to look at it from the start of this is going to change my life. And if you only want to get 30 or 40% like I'm at now, then I'm personally fine with that, knowing that I can continue to get more percentages. But you just can't look at it and go, I'm going to 100% flip the switch. And in 16 weeks, I'm going to come out the other end and I'm going to be rock solid. I don't think you're doing it right if you do it that way. My personal opinion. I just think you really need to be slow and steady, do the changes as they go, adapt, you know, and cheat once in a while. Just don't tell her.
Except I don't judge when you tell me.
I know.
I always say your body, your pain, not mine.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's what, you know, I mean, I got some pain down right away and some pains were gone immediately. And the nausea, you know, I don't have to do Zofran all the time. I don't have to have the bags scattered all out the house every time. And I can eat decent meals, you know, night after night and not go good meal, really low meal because I don't want to make myself sick.
Yeah, I think you touched on a couple of really important things for people out there listening, considering what to do and whether to do this program. It really is personalized to each person. And what I do with one person is very different with another. I really take where your values are, what is important to you, and we work with that. And I really like that you brought in that in 16 weeks, you can't reverse decades or years of issues. I mean, it really is setting people on the right course to continue to make gains beyond that. But most people have enough of a gain within those 4 months to want to keep going on that trajectory. So thank you for sharing that.
I think the other thing too is the group. You know, I mean, really the only thing, you know, there's regularly like 7, 8, 9 people, you know, weekly. And I think the one thing you kind of find out is that the only thing you really have in common is everybody has pain that nobody else could figure out how to get rid of it. So to have a tailored program when I might have back pain and somebody else has, you know, an intestinal issue, or somebody else has, you know, maybe they're dealing with cancer and remission issue, you know what I mean? So I don't see how you could successfully, well, I guess you can, it just wouldn't work right to have the same program, to say this is, again, that you need to fit into my cookie cutter program. So you have to be able, you have to tailor it, or I don't think you would be as successful as you are.
So since you brought that up, Dave, the part of the weekly group session with everybody being in somewhat different stages of the program as well as different areas of health concern. What did you find that was the most helpful with the group session and that approach?
Well, like one of them was, you know, how to release stress. You find out maybe there's different ways, or maybe you hear a way that you think maybe is kind of goofy that somebody else does, and you're like, oh, okay, I'm not so weird. I think a lot of people have, I'm trying to word this right. It's not that my loved ones don't care that I was in pain or didn't understand I was in pain, but they don't think sometimes you can understand what the pain does to you when it's a chronic pain that you can't get away, that you know is not only affecting your life, that you're worried how it's affecting those around you. So when you start to find people that are sharing the same things, you know, it's okay, everybody's here in pain and it doesn't matter that it's different. One of the other things too is questions come up that you probably never would have thought about asking. That happened to me more than once, you know, where you'd have the how's everybody going at, and then what are the questions, and then the questions come up, and then the next thing you know, you're on this 45-minute or hour talk about it, and you're like, I never even would have thought, I never even knew that was a thing. I never would have thought to bring it up that way. I never would have thought to ask about it, you know. So that's just it. I don't think this was abnormal. I think this is the norm, that everybody was so open in the group. That was really helpful. You know, like I couldn't really tell you that much about each person's, you know, personal back down history, but I could tell you how every single person probably said something that at some point was helpful in one way or another, or shared something that they're going through the same thing you are in some way or another.
Sure, I know all of us who've been on this journey have felt very alone at some point, and it's very powerful to see how you guys support each other in the group sessions and realize you're not alone. There's a lot more people out there dealing with chronic issues and not getting answers than we even realize.
Yeah, and even simple things, like I don't know how many times somebody would just ask, hey, how do I cook this, or how do I cook that, or how do I make my own almond milk, you know, how do I just do something simple that you can just like, you know, oh, I've done this, knowledgeable, I can pass it on to you, no big deal.
Okay, so last question I have for you, Dave, is are there any take-home messages you would give to anybody out there listening to this right now?
The biggest ones is you're going to get out of it what you put into it. Remember that you have to look at it that it's a lifetime change. So to me, that was helpful, that I'm like, I'm not going to speed into it. I'm going to slowly do it, finding things that help. I think a big thing is setting your realistic goals. Again, me personally, I don't ever expect to be pain free, but if I can get down to 3s, I'm good. You know, just really be open on what you really are looking to get out of the program. Diane will tell you this is in her program, this is in her wheelhouse, this is what she suggests. And then it's really up to you on how far you want to take it. I think you said a good way of, like, if you cheat, you're going to be in pain once in a while. Because I can tell you now, when you give up bread, which was not that hard to do for some reason, but some things really were, like giving up crackers was really hard, you know, but you give up bread and then you try it again later and you're like, oh, maybe this was it, when you reintroduce yourself. So, you know, enjoy the surprise when you find out that's been causing my pain all the time and I can actually give that up and get a little bit less pain. You know, enjoy the surprise. I think you'll find on the benefits on how far you want to go in the program.
Great. Thank you very much for taking the time and sharing your story and everything with people out there. I appreciate you so much. And is there anything else that you want to add that I haven't asked you?
No. For me, it was beneficial to not do any research, you know, really before I listened to you. I guess if some people do the research, you know, really do the good research and make sure that you're finding, whether it's the good or bad, credible stuff, you know, and don't be afraid. I can tell you now, if when you look at the food and what you're all of a sudden you can't eat or what you can't eat, I guarantee you she's not going to find a more pickier person than me. That's the reason why I cook. because I'm at least going to eat what I want to eat. And I think food is a big part of your program. Just don't be afraid to experiment, find substitutions. It's one of those, if I can do it, then anybody can do it as far as that goes.
And I think you said something to me maybe a few weeks back about how surprised you were that you were able to cook and eat as much as you are.
Yeah, the fact that I'm able to have like my lasagna break and not like I cannot tell the difference, and these are just rice noodles. So now my next step is now I got to figure out how can I make my own rice noodles so I can use my pasta maker again. Yeah, it's not that I lost like flavor. For me, a texture. It was just finding out certain things, and again, finding out that I'm looking up smoothie recipes still hurts my brain. In a good
Right.
way.
All right. Awesome. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate you doing this today.
Oh, no problem.